Is it time?
I'm sorry. Sure. Yes, it is 1:02. 2 minutes late.
I'm sorry. I apologize for being late. Hi. My name is Jonathan Graham Thomas Palmer. Welcome to How and Why to Flip Your Classroom. What do you think? Am I going to trip over it?
Yeah.
I don't know. We got cords here. There's a cord there. I'm not feeling good about it.
Put a chair over it.
I'll just trip over the chair. Okay, so before I even begin, I will tell you about myself. We're not going to go there yet. We're going to start with this question. Please raise your hand, if you could raise your hand. All the way up. Be proud. Other hand. 2 hands, both at the same time. Oh, awesome. Okay, now we have established that you can raise your hand. Now, we're going to interact in this because I can't teach without interaction. This is why I want you to have name tags so I can call on Emily, or when Emily starts talking to me, I can call her by name because I got to do it that way. Okay. I have a whole bunch of things that I could talk about today having to do with flipping. I could talk all day about it if you wanted me to. You don't want me to. Anyway. But what I end up talking about specifically has to do with what you are interested in. So when you have a question, because you will have a question, you might even have one right now, please ask it. Raise your hand. If I don't even notice you, just start yelling. I don't really care, okay? We're all civilized, it'll be okay. I am filming today. Thank you very much for signing my permission form. If you do something that you think is terrible and you don't want in the video, just let me know. A reasonable person or not. This is what I do for a living, pretty much. All right. So, this is about flipping. Please raise your hand if you have flipped your class. Interesting. Okay. If you are an English teacher, if you're assigned books, you have flipped your class.
Yes.
Okay. So do me a favor. Rob Mall. Sorry, that's an awesome name. Rob Mall. Rob, tell me what flipping is.
It's taking certain aspects of your classroom that you would, well, at least for me, that I would give as a lecture, and then assigning the lecture at home, and then having the kids work collaboratively in class so I can help them.
Basic idea. You're taking something that you would traditionally do in class and have the students do it at home. A lot of times that's a lecture. Sometimes that's reading a book. Could be all sorts of different things. Okay. But then taking the stuff that is at home and having them do it in school, where you, the teacher, are there to help them process the information. Okay? With a lecture, you can, there are students, for a part of a lecture, they're just listening, right? And they can do that at home. But when they're trying to process the information, that's when it's most useful for you to be there. Okay? That's the basic idea behind flipping. I'll get to why it's called flipping physics in a little bit. Don't worry about it. Okay, so I'll talk about myself because that's important, I guess. So I graduated in 1997 with a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. I was an engineer for a little while. That didn't stick. So I went back and got a master's degree in education in 2000. Started teaching at Northville High School, and I taught physics for 13 years at Northville High School. And I stepped out of the classroom into the virtual classroom and started a business called Flipping Physics. And I'll talk about specifically why as we get farther into this class. So more background on me. I can't do background on me without first talking about my wife, because I would not be here without her. There's no way I could be doing what I'm doing without her support. I also have children. I can't do this without having a picture of my children. Ryan on the left, Geneva on the right, 3rd grade and 5th grade. A couple days ago, they found a mouse outside. They named it Whiskers, and they wanted to bring it inside and save it. I said no. So we kept it in the garage. We made a little bed for it. We gave it food. And somehow they convinced themselves the next day that Whiskers was sleeping. And I will tell you that I can honestly say that I don't know where Whiskers is at this time, because the garbage went out this morning. But they somehow, in their 3rd grade and 5th grade mind, they're still convinced that he is in the garage and happy. Okay. And we have, of course, the family photo from Christmas with our dog, Buster, our Labradoodle. And somehow, I think my wife missed the memo about the type of picture we were doing. And self-promotional plug. Yesterday was my TV debut. I was on Detroit Public Television last night. This is Christy McDonald. She's a news anchor for Detroit Public Television. American graduate. I was a part of a group talking about new education concepts. Okay. You're not asking questions. I'm right. I'll get over it. Okay. Actually, let's do this. I'm gonna go over here. So what I have for you is this. What you're about to watch is my 87-minute class, my traditional class, compressed down to 26 seconds. Please enjoy. We're going to now take a look at the traditional class, and what we're going to see now is a time-lapse video of the entire 87-minute class. So you're going to see it move by pretty quickly, and the idea here is so you can see what happens during the traditional class. All right, Emily, tell me what you saw.
I saw you moving around a lot of notes being written on the board, a lot of kids taking notes, kids getting a little sidetracked.
So a whole lot of teacher-student interaction?
No, not at all.
Where am I most of the time?
The board.
At the board, right?
Back to the kids.
Sometimes back to the kids, absolutely, because I have to write on the board. It's hard to do that while I'm facing the kids, right? So, and this was 87 minutes. This is my AP Physics C class where you have to present, there's just a lot of material I have to present. So that is traditionally what it looks like, okay? So what I did is I made a video where I compared the traditional class to to a flipped class. So this is, in the upper left-hand corner, one class, and then a year later, the same subject material being taught in a flipped class. And what I want you to do now is, I want you to listen. So for a little bit, we're going to hear the traditional class, and then we're going to hear the flipped class. We can start with Ampere's law. Closed loop integral B dot ds equals mu naught times the current on the inside. Okay. Let's see. We know B is up. ds is also up. Therefore,
Wait, so they're equal. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I thought that they were equal. I just thought that they were in. Do I have to try this? Oh, wait. Okay, I didn't see it.
So there's a marked difference, right? Karen, what's the difference between what you hear in the traditional class versus the flipped class?
The traditional class, you're doing all the talking, and in the flipped class, they're doing most of the talking.
And they're all doing it together, right? So in that traditional class, it's just you talking incessantly, right? And in the flipped class, the kids are actually actively engaged. Did you see me? Where am I in the flipped class? Do you see me?
No. We have an arrow.
I am right here. I'm right there. There's an arrow that pointed it out a little bit. Because as a flipped teacher, the whole time I'm in amongst the students, helping them understand the material, rather than up front trying to somehow tell them what the material is. So it's a very different way of teaching. So just to summarize the basic concept of the flipped classroom, it is student-centered, right? You switch the focus from the teacher at the front to the student. They're the ones who are responsible for their learning. And just as an example of what I mean by this is, I just posted the solutions to the 1998 AP Physics C released exam. It is 6 free response questions and 70 multiple choice questions. And it's over 4 hours of video. And it is free for anyone on the planet to use. So any teacher, and as an AP teacher, you have to, as you study for the AP test, you use old exams. Now, as an AP teacher, traditionally, I would try to go through as many of those solutions as I could. But I'm not going to get through all of them, certainly. I don't have 4 hours to work with. And as I'm working through the solution of one problem, a single problem, there's a percentage of the students in that class who don't need me to do that because they already understood it. But under a flipped model, the students can look at the specific questions that they missed, right? So you're giving ownership of the learning to the students so that they have control of what they're learning. That's what I mean by student-centered. So the flipped classroom is more efficient than a traditional class. So what I did is I taught for 12 and a half years, and then I flipped my classes second semester. And so I was actually able to give the same set of kids, or approximately the same set of kids, questions at the end of second semester and the end of first semester and compare. And I was actually able to decrease the amount of work students were doing outside of class. I've heard one of the concerns from people is, well, now they have to do these videos at home. But remember, they're doing the videos, they're watching videos at home so that they can understand the material better when they're in class with you. Okay? One example is that the students are no longer in my class trying to analyze and finish the lab at home. They're doing that in class instead, where if they get stuck at home, they're stuck and they don't have anywhere to go. But when they get stuck in school with you there, you can ask them questions and help them get unstuck and get them moving forward. So it's actually a much more efficient way of doing things. And it provides much more student-teacher interaction. I got to know my students so much better when I was talking to them all day, as opposed to talking at them all day. It provides more time for non-lecture activities. I was able to do more demonstrations. I was able to do more hands-on activities for my students. And it is more relaxed. Hopefully you can hear that in the video, right? Students are up, moving around the classroom. They're just much more relaxed. Now, the reason that I stepped out of the real classroom and into the virtual classroom is because one of the issues with the flipped model is that you're now assigning videos for students to watch. And one of the issues that everybody has is getting your students to do the homework, right? And now it's to watch videos. So let me just show this first. This is an example of what I was having the students watch before.
Page 6.5
What I did is I filmed every single one of my lectures. I have 79 hours of video of me standing up in front of the class lecturing. But what I did is I piloted making some videos that look like this.
And now grab the red, dilapidated dictionary that I used to slam against the objects and discuss Newton's third law, and bind it to the other two books, and drop them, please.
This is fun.
And lastly, tie the giant dictionary my wife received for Christmas when she was 15 instead of the boombox she was really hoping for, and she never did end up receiving.
Boombox? What's a boombox? This is massive. Go.
And drop them. All right, Billy, please come back in.
This is my house, by the way. I film everything in my basement.
So now we can take all 4 videos, splice them into just the free fall portion to show that they all fall at the same rate, and voila! You can see that regardless of the fact that each of these has a different mass, they all take the exact same amount of time to fall, and therefore all have the exact same acceleration in the y direction. And if that isn't enough proof, I will loop them in order and show that 1 book, 2 books, 3 books, 4 books, 1 book, 2 books, 3 books, 4 books. Can you feel it? I can feel it. Because you can dance to it.
Oh, we can dance if we want to.
We can leave your friends behind. Because your friends don't dance and if...
Anybody name this song?
Safety dance.
Very
Oh, yeah,
nice.
that's right.
Safety dance. So the reason that I felt that I could step out of the classroom or it would be useful is because I can make videos like this. I've been working with video for a long time. I make home videos that kind of look like this. It's just something that I do. It's something I'm very entertained with. I write music. I have microphones because I record my own music and stuff. So you have to admit that this is a lot more entertaining, and there's a better chance that students are going to watch this than to watch other videos. So I provide all these videos to anybody on the planet who wants them for free. And I recently learned where Tunisia is because a bunch of students from Tunisia started watching my videos earlier this week. Anybody? Tunisia?
Yeah.
Right there.
It's in the north
Yeah,
of
it's,
Africa.
I don't know anything about geography. I'm terrible, but I'm learning because I'm like, ooh, Singapore, where's that?
They speak French.
Do they?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I don't know.
And Arabic.
Yeah, I wish that it was in French then. But also, you can do things with video that you just can't do in class, right? So I was able to take and show that regardless of these sets of books having different masses, they all fall with the exact same at the exact same rate. Therefore, take the exact same amount of time. Very basic concept, but an important one. All right, so we did that. Really, you guys aren't asking questions.
I have one.
What
Oh,
software do you
awesome.
use?
Sorry, she raised her hand. I'm going to go with her. Linda.
Okay, so you said that
You're
these
right.
videos are available for anybody over the planet here. So where are they?
I'll show you in a minute.
Okay.
I'll show you where that is. Thank you. Go ahead.
Software.
Software. Depends. I mean, I use Final Cut Pro to do all the video editing, but I also do, Adobe Illustrator. I run all my audio through Adobe Audition first off to process it and things like that. So I'm pretty high end. So yeah, this is just, I estimate that I spend about 2 hours working to create every minute of video that I make. Right? So this isn't something that I would expect any of you to be able to do. And I'll talk about what my expectations for you would be in a little bit. Okay? So I want to do this. One of the questions that I receive from people is, well, what do you actually do? How do you organize a flipped class? Right? How does it actually work? And this took me a long time for my brain to process. So what we're going to look at here is I'm going to put up the traditional class and the flipped class. Now this is just a sample schedule of how I would run my class. Okay, so where we're going to start is with the traditional class, class number 1. Now, my classes when I taught were 87 minutes long. So I was able to start with a quiz on the previous concept. And after that quiz, we would then start the new concept. Then the kids would go home, and they would do homework. That homework could be to work on problems, it could be to read some more. Then the next class, we'd do a little bit more lecture, talk about maybe what they did for their homework problems. Then we'd start a lab, and we'd start collecting data for a lab. Then the students would go home, and they would analyze the data at home. And then the third class, they would come in and the lab would be due at the start of class because I never had time to have the students analyze data in class. We just didn't have the time. And then I would do a review lecture, and then they'd have a worksheet that was due at the end of the class. And then we go back to home number 1, which is the day before the quiz, where they then are studying via the worksheet solutions and a practice quiz and practice quiz solutions. So they're studying for the quiz at home. They're doing the lab analyzation at home, and they're doing their book work at home. When I flipped my class, it changed a lot. Class number 1, we have to start at home, because they start with the lecture at home via the video. Then they come in, and this is what you were looking at in the flipped class where you saw, basically kids are working on whatever they need to work on, right? Because I've given them all the tools. And I'm wandering around helping them. So they're asking me questions about the videos that perhaps they didn't understand some part. They're working on bookwork problems and asking me questions about those. Then we will start working on the lab. We'll collect data. Nope, that's exactly the same as what we did before, the collecting data part. Then they go home and they get a little bit more lecture. Maybe it's a slightly new topic, maybe it's a problem that I go over. Then they come back to class, and now they analyze the data in class. So they have time to work on solving this lab and understanding what's going on in the lab. And then we have some time to work on the worksheet, which is going to be due at the end of class. And then they go home, and they do a little review lecture, and they can study for the quiz, which is going to be in the next class. Class number 3. They come in and they have time before the quiz to finish up their lab if they need to work to study for the quiz by either working with the worksheet solutions or the practice quiz solutions. And I will tell you that kids are not, there's never a time they're more motivated to study than right before a quiz. So notice, I've given them time, right? You hear all this stuff. You've got the worksheet solutions, the practice quiz, and I'm here, and I can help you. And that was awesome, because the kids, like, they would buckle down and focus and study, and then we'd take the quiz. And that is, I mean, notice the difference here. In the flipped model, really, the only things that they do are lecture at home and a little bit of working on studying for the quiz if they want to. Whereas in the traditional model, really, it was mostly lecture.
Can I ask you a
Yes, go
question
ahead.
about that? Where you do most of your lecture at home, how quickly do they adapt to being flipped? Whereas they have to watch it at home or they don't understand what they're doing in class. How long does it take them to grasp that? Do some of them not?
Okay, I will address that. Okay, so the question basically is, how's the transition go, right? And what do you do when they don't do their homework? Okay, because realistically, you're gonna have kids who don't do their homework. And I'll talk about this. Let me put this up. So I'm going to talk about how to flip, but I'll skip to the one right now, which is to prepare your students and parents. Okay. Actually, let me go through this now. I'll get to your question in just a minute. Okay. So I made a whole video. It's about how to flip, and I'm basically going to walk through some of the pieces. I'll show you where it is if you want to watch it, and other resources on my website. So number 1, interact with other flipping teachers. There's a website called flippedlearning.org. where you can go create an account and you can, again, all of this is on my website and you don't have to write any of it down, I'll show you where it is. Where you can interact with other teachers of your discipline, because I fully understand it's very different to flip a physics class as it is to flip a history class. They're just very, very different creatures. Okay? And you have discussion boards there, people post all sorts of questions about how can I do this, what experience have you got? Another suggestion is to use other teachers' lectures, okay? You will end up making some of your own if you're going to flip your class, but I would start with other people's. The reason for that is time, for one. It's going to take you a lot less time. And 2, it'll help you to understand what works for you and your students and what other people are doing, right? Because, I mean, chances are good many of you don't even know how to make the videos. Right? So I would start with other people's stuff. And flippedlearning.org has a whole bunch of stuff on how to make videos as well. Please start small. Don't do what I did. I was like, hey, I'm going to flip all my classes at the same time. Every class, every day. It was really hard. It was worth it in the long run, but it was really, really hard. And I actually prepared for over a year to get ready for it. Anyway. So yes, just pick one lecture that you really like and is, but the key here is when you think about, I'll back up. Before I started flipping my class, as I said, I was posting all of my lecture videos online. And it became a resource for students who missed class. By the way, flipping the class is really useful for students who are going to miss class. It's really, really useful. But I had a student who was absent one day, and so she watched the video to make up for what she had missed. And she came in and she watched my entire lecture. And she came up to me afterwards and she said, you know what? I watched the wrong lecture. I watched the lecture you just gave today. And it was exactly the same. You talked for 60 minutes. And I'll tell you, you used a lot of the same phrases, a lot of the same jokes. Right? Because there are lectures that you've given. I mean, I taught for 13 years, 5 seconds. I mean, just think about how many times you've given specific lectures. So when you're thinking about where to start, think about a lecture that you give over and over again, every year. Maybe even one that you don't really like. And so you can make a video. So that then, rather than having to do that lecture again, you do it once. Kids can watch it. And I'm not gonna lie, you're gonna make mistakes. You're probably gonna have to redo a video at some point. But you know, when you do it once, you can continue to use it from year to year. Prepare your students and parents. And I will say administrators. Okay? Very important. So I put out I created a sheet of paper, which I'll post on the website, which had to do, just talked about what flipping is. You could post a link. I have a video that goes through and shows the differences between a traditional and flipped class. I'll show you where that is as well. But when I say prepare your parents and students, you need to not increase their workload. The main concern of students was like, now I'm going to have to watch videos at home and do homework and all this stuff. But you need to stress that you're making them more efficient with their time. And you need to not increase what they're doing, because suddenly you're going to have more time in class. Don't feel like you need to fill that with new assignments, right? You want to fill that with the stuff they were doing at home. That's what you want to do with it. You need to teach the students how to watch videos. This is very important. The students will sit down with the computer, start watching the video, they'll have the TV on, and they'll be on their phone texting, and they'll have the iPad where they're playing Minecraft. This is not very good. You need to teach them how to watch. They need to put everything away, they need to take notes, and rewind if they need to. Okay? But the amazing part here is that I had kids who told me that they watched it at 2 a.m. because that's when they were most alert and able to watch it. I had kids who would set their alarm and wake up in the morning before school and watch it because that's when they felt they could be most alert and able to listen and understand. Okay? So, be amazed, because it is amazing. And then after you've kind of mastered it, you can start to tailor what you're doing to the changes you're seeing. After 13 years when I flipped my classes, I started to get questions I'd never gotten before from my students because they'd never had the time to process the information or the time to ask me as many questions. So, when you prepare your parents and students, you need to make sure they understand all this stuff. Well, what if they don't do it? So I'll give an example. I had a class where, with a flip model, you know what the kids are doing, and you know what they've done, because you're interacting with them the whole time. And I knew that a large percentage of this class had not done the video. They had not done their homework. And so you have a couple of options at that point. You can, as the teacher, say, okay, I got, let's say 50% of the kids. Okay, 50% of the kids didn't understand it. You know what? We're going to go over this, because you got to understand this. That's one option. Option number two, you could say, you know what? This was your homework. You got to learn that you've got to do your homework. And we're going to get through this. It's going to be really hard. And that was my option. Because if you think about it from this perspective, if I chose to stop and say, okay, we'll go over it because not enough of you understand it, well then, the 50% that watch the video are the next time we're going to be like, well, I'm not going to watch the video, he's going to do it anyway. And the 50% who didn't watch it aren't going to watch it because they're like, he's going to go through it anyway. And that'll even trickle to other class periods because they'll be like, did you hear 4B didn't actually watch, so he went through it? So that would be a disaster. It was actually had the reverse effect because I got really angry. And then I was like, you know what? We're gonna do the best we can. And I had some kids who did not do very well grade-wise for a day. And that's okay, right? That's a learning experience. So that is my answer to your question. Is that answer? Yeah. Good. All right. What else do I want to do? Yes?
How about, you taught high school, how about like the middle schoolers who are often after 1 or 2 or 3 tries, sometimes it wouldn't be like a 1, it would affect their grade more. Do you have any suggestions about that?
Okay. There are, well, clearly with middle school, you're going to have a different expectation for the amount that they're going to be watching. And the idea of flipping is to take and use technology to make this as efficient as possible. That's the way I see it. So I'm going to talk about an example of a teacher, Crystal Kirsch, she's a pretty prominent blogger, flipper, and this year she had a group of kids in a math class that for whatever reason, I don't remember why, she thought that they would not be able to watch the videos at home. That she just didn't think it was going to work. So what she did is what I termed an internal flip. So she provided the videos for the students in class. So then they were able to watch them in small groups, and she was able to wander around and answer questions as they had them in the class. So there are different ways to deal with it. We also talked about, you can use the hammer, which is you assign the homework, which is to watch the video, and when they show up, you start with a miniature quiz about what was on the video. It's pretty simple, what was on the video. So, you basically have to learn what's going to work best for your kids, is how it works. I didn't
maturity too.
Right, but again, that's something that you would know. Yeah.
I have two questions. First of all, how long are the videos that you use when you flip?
Okay.
The new ones.
Again, so this gets to you have to know your audience, if you will. Physics is usually an elective, and usually a little bit, the kids are a little bit more interested in it. So my videos, I have one that's 1 minute long. I have one that's, well, the AP Physics review, there's one that's like 70 minutes long, but that's a completely different creature in and of itself, because that's all 70 problems altogether. I have one that's 26 minutes, which I determined was way too long. The optimal is somewhere between like 10 to 12. I mean, maybe 5 to 12. 12 is really kind of the maximum. The problem is sometimes, I don't know, as teachers we get really excited, and I'm like, I did this at the very beginning. I want to show it at the end and contrast the graph that I made and the slope and stuff. So, but really, shorter is better. Yes?
Do you, as part of the homework, do you have questions that are related to the video, or do you require notes or anything that is proof that they did it?
That's an interesting question. I never found that I needed proof that they did it, because I knew whether they did it or not. Because you wander around, a kid comes up and asks you a question, and you're like, you realize that I answered that within the first minute of the video, right? It's okay. Right, so it becomes, you interact so much more with the students that I didn't feel like I needed, you need to turn in your notes and I'm going to check to make sure that you've done that.
Got it.
But there are some teachers who do that.
Okay.
And technology-wise, I haven't found a way to make sure that they're watching it, because the truth is they could even just press play and walk away. It's so hard to figure that out. So I just yeah. Well, and an interesting thing about copying, I actually have two comments. One, when they copy homework, they're at home. So by putting the homework in class, it actually makes it a lot harder to copy it, right? Because you're there, which I love. I also want to talk about technology for just a minute. For the first 12 years that I taught, I was very against cell phones and any communication devices. And our school had a policy that was the teacher can decide whether students could use them or not. But when I had issues, not all that often, but kids' phones would go off and I'd have to take them. I always felt bad about it. I knew I had to take it, blah, 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 blah. Well, when I flipped, I also flipped my idea with technology, because I'm like, you know what? Bring in your phone, bring in your laptop. I don't care what it is. You are now using it as a tool to help you learn in class. And I had kids, there was so much technology in my room that kids just brought in, and we just used it. And I had a lot fewer issues with technology when I simply allowed it, and it became a tool for learning rather than something that we were fighting against. Yes?
How and where do you post your videos? How do the students access them?
All right, let's transition to that. This is my website, and you could see, actually here, this will be fun. So these are all my calculus videos, all my AP Physics C calculus videos. Entire year of videos. Anyway, that's not what I wanted to show. That's fun. Okay, so I have this tab here called Flipping. And here I have a video where I show the differences between a traditional and flipped class. So this is a video that I would suggest that you could use to talk about, and for your parents and your administrators and stuff, say, take a look at this video. It discusses and shows the differences between a traditional and a flipped class. And then underneath here as well, I have one called Mercy Tech Talk. which currently has nothing other than the handout that you have there, but I will post other stuff on here, stuff that I handed out and stuff we talked about today. I'll post that on here. But then there's also this one, which is how to flip. So I made a video, which is designed for teachers, which is why I thought it could be 20 minutes long, because you have a much longer attention span than students, right?
Sure.
Well, sadly it was this long, but I tried to make it entertaining. You can see, oh, right here, this is where I'm mimicking a student. Look, they've got the TV on, they've got they're on the phone, they've got the iPad, and they're watching the video. So I was talking about how you shouldn't do that. So you can look at that, and that goes through the details of my suggestions on how to flip a video. But one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up is right here. These are my flipping education resources links. This is what I would suggest that you use. I've got the link to the Flipped Learning Network, which is right here. And then one of the issues with trying to find videos, you'll be on a computer pretty soon, you can see it. One of the issues with trying to find videos is like YouTube EDU, there are just so many and they're just so disorganized and you can't find anything. So my suggestion, and what we're going to do with the last however long, 10 minutes or so, is I want you to go to a computer and think about that lecture that I talked about, that like a lecture that you think the kids would be able to do as a flipped lecture. Okay? And go to this website, which is the first one here, called Watch, Know, Learn. Now the reason we're going to go there, it's the top one there, you see it, is because it's organized by people like you and me. Like I've posted things here, I've organized things here, because as a teacher, this will help you and it'll help other teachers. And what you can do is you can filter. So I can say, we're going to go anywhere between age 10 and 12. Okay? And if you look on the left, we have a directory. And the directory decreased because the number of videos in language arts decreased. I can click on the plus sign, and under language arts, we can talk about different things. Okay, we're going to talk about writing. What's a specific piece of writing? And let's do English grammar. And let's do sentence structure. And let's do compound sentences. So you can see that they have it actually organized by things that you would be interested in. And here are 3 different videos on sentence structure. And what I would suggest that you do for the next 10 minutes, and I'll be wandering around trying to help you out, is go to Watch, Know, Learn, and start seeing what you can find. If you don't find what you're looking for there, go back to my Flipping Physics website, and you can see I have other resources as well.
Yeah, sure.
But that is my suggestion as to what you should do at this time.
Your website, is it on the handout?
It's on the
It's on the
Flipping
card.
Physics, it's on the card.
It was on the card. I also have a question before we
Yeah,
do this.
go ahead.
Flipping a classroom, I understand the videos in
Yeah.
home. Are there any other flipping activities that you would
Sure.
suggest doing other than just videos?
Okay,
Because-
so one of the, yeah, I understand that. So there's a website called Learning Paths, which I really like, because you can make playlists that incorporate things that are not just videos. So you can have you could have like a pre-test on there, and then you can show a video, and then they would take the post-test, or something like that. So what you can do is you can make it an activity, not just a video. That's one of the things I like about Learning Paths.
Learning Paths.
Learning Paths.
.org.
.com, I think. It's linked on my website on the How to Flip page. They changed the name recently, so I think it's Learning Paths. Yeah.
You said at the beginning that they go over their questions and you don't reteach it because the kids that already know it don't want to hear it again.
Yeah.
When do you give them those answers? Do you give them on the board? I mean, where do they get those answers?
I actually post all my solutions online.
Okay.
So that's the way I would do
So
it.
they come to class with that information?
They come to class with that information, or they have it, they can access it from their phone or whatever.
And then collaborate.
Yep. I had kids who would take pictures of their textbook with the homework problems and bring in, so they didn't have to bring in their textbook.
Okay.
You
And
know?
then they collaborate, is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. I mean, the real world is collaboration.
Okay.
So yeah, I would always work on collaboration and not on quizzes, but you know. the rest of the stuff.
The internet.
Okay, so I would like you to just, I want you to see what's on Watch No Learn, and I want to hear while you're doing that. So you can do that now. You're like me.
So what I'm finding is that there's more things over here.